brilliant panel of guests here, and I'm going to go around and briefly introduce them, and then they'll talk a bit more about themselves, and we'll dive into the conversation. So I'm going to start off first. Ghanaian style, we go this way. So I'm going to start off with Kojo Yankson, who is the host of the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7. Manasseh Awuni is an investigative journalist and a good friend to those who don't want to do the right thing. Sitting next to him is a 37-year-old veteran of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, Mr. Teye, Kitcher. And seated next to him is the first female editor of The Spectator, Tina Aforo-Yeboah. You're all welcome.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
On Zoom, we have Mensah, who is the head of the political desk, current affairs desk at Multimedia. And we'll be speaking with 96-year-old but very alert and sharp Joe Latte, who did a lot as far as outside broadcasts and journalism at GBC is concerned. So these are people who have gathered the great and the good to talk about journalism, the whole story. I'm going to start, first of all, with, I think, Mr. Kitcher.
Wow.
Yes. Just briefly tell us your experience. A 37-year-old veteran is not a joke, so let's start with you.
Well, I started working in GBC in 1982, and I left 2019. But a chunk of my time at GBC was as a correspondent at the castle. In fact, the youngest ever, because I started work at the castle as a reporter, the lowest rank in the newsroom, and covered the late President Rawlings when he was a soldier head of state till he became a democratically elected president.
Yeah, you covered the whole reign, too.
Sure.
All the way. Yeah, okay. Awesome. Great stuff. Before I come to Tina, let's go to the phone and speak with another veteran. He's 96 years old, and his brain is still as sharp as a razor. Mr. Joe Latte, who did a lot as far as outside broadcast journalism is concerned. Mr. Latte, good evening. Welcome to the Roundtable. Good to hear your voice. We will get him soon. But while we're fixing that, let me just come to Tina. So you have the distinction of being the first female editor of The Spectator.
Yes.
Wow.
But I was with the Ghanaian Times, and we are two papers from the same stable, the New Times Corporation. And so I worked there until I became the news editor at Ghanaian Times. Then, after an interview, I was posted to The Spectator as the first female editor of The Spectator newspaper. And in between, I became the acting managing director of the New Times Corporation for a while. And it's been over 30 years of journalism. We know at that time, as Teye just said, some of us went in just after the revolution, and it was rather a bit I say topsy-turvy, because you didn't know where to place your foot, because for some of us who were so young at that time, we found you don't have to go here, you don't have to say this. So when you come back from assignment, you don't even know how to start your story, because you write and the news editor will tell you, no, don't start it this way. Meanwhile, you were there. But some of these things happen in journalism, as we learned later on. So I rose through the ranks as a cub reporter through to become the first female editor. So it was not without any inconveniences, because sometimes we were stopped from covering some assignments.
Okay.
Why? Because we are coming from a certain stable,
yeah,
and the people did not want us there. So you realize that even with those who were inviting the media, you had classes.
Yes. So there were things that stopped you from doing.
There were things that stopped us from doing certain things, And I always say that I loved sports reporting when I went to the New Times Corporation, but I was told no. At that time, women don't do sports.
Well, so much has changed, and I'm glad.
So much has changed.
You smashed a lot of glass ceilings, and we'll talk a little bit about that throughout our conversation. I think, talking of sports, I think it's a beautiful segue into the next guest who is on the line right now. Mr. Jolate, can you hear me?
I think it's a beautiful thing. The next guest is on the line right now. I can hear you very clearly.
All right, Mr. Latte, please turn off the volume on your TV so that we can speak through the phone. We want to know your experience of working at GBC. How did you get to work at the national broadcaster, and what were some of the highlights in your time here?
Your experience of working at GBC. How did you get to work at the national broadcaster? Well. I look back quite a number of years to my time in BBC. I remember that when I joined the corporation, my letter of appointment was dated 1st January 61. It was New Year's Day, and I had a holiday. And from then, I went all out. Life in GBC in those days, there were some very relieving moments, relieving times, and there were deepening, sorrowful times as well. During those days in GBC, we made contacts going about in Mercedes-Benz cars. Mercedes-Benz cars. They were the cars we were using for making our contacts and for traveling to places and so on. Now, and after a while, the whole thing went down. I joined at the time when there were a few white people on the South, people who'd been drafted from abroad, from BBC, to help GBC to stand on its feet. And they had their own practice. Yeah, I mean, the way they interacted with the staff, the lower staff. You'll be in the dining hall having a meal, and the Director General, a man called J.P. Miller, he will descend to the dining hall, sit by you, and discuss a program of yours that he had watched. When this was the time when, let me say, the colonial GBC. When the colonial GBC died, and we went into the sovereign Ghana GBC, the practice ceased. The people who started GBC at the time, 1935, were people drafted from the civil service. So their idea of discipline, of keeping order, with doing things, was most of the time civil service. And it wasn't quite fitting into the practice of broadcasting. But gradually, we kept on improving I was compelled at a stage to join the union. GBC was a division of the Public Service Workers Union. So I joined the union to fight situations. And I remember a day that I marched, I went to TUC Hall with about 300 members of staff of UBC. And the next day, they wanted to disgrace me. They wrote me a query because there was something in the newspapers about, there was a picture showing me addressing the crowd at TUC. And they said I had revealed some management decisions and so on. So they wrote me a query and they wanted to disgrace me. But when they looked at the caption and the line under it, it said, by an evening news reporter. Mm-hmm. So I took it up with them, and the query was done in 2 weeks. But the discipline was still very, very strong. And the improvement today, I think, has come mostly in the area of equipment.
Right.
We have better equipment. Maybe they are not many, but better equipment today. In the olden days, if you wanted to do a program, for instance, a commentator you wanted to do to cover an event, you have to go around at the weekends and find out what you can about the event. You did a lot of walking, a lot of asking, a lot of begging for information. Today you go to the internet and it's a matter of just pushing the button, and you get it all going.
All right.
So I think there has been considerable improvement.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
Considerable improvement today.
Right.
But there is still room for improvement.
There's still room for improvement. Thank you so much for making all of us here feel very young. Considering that you got your appointment letter on the 1st of January 1961, I was exactly minus 10 years old. I don't want to know how old Manasseh was. Speaking of Manasseh, how old were you in 1961?
I was born in 85. So
okay, all right.
So
you can minus
20
zero.
something.
Tell us about your experience in the media so far. I mean, just highlights.
Well, I will say I started from GBC. There are people of my age who tell me, well, they saw Komla Dumo and others, but in Kitcher, where I grew up, GBC was the only media house. I say so because Daily Graphic, 50 copies came to Kitcher, but it would arrive the following day.
50?
Only 50. So it was distributed to heads of departments. My father was a night watchman, so obviously was out. So GBC, Volta Star Radio, and GTV News was what some of us were exposed to. And even when I came to GIJ in 2006, it took a while for me to even realize that stations existed, because I knew of only GBC. So 2 weeks into GIJ, I wrote my first radio news commentary. Interestingly, Mr. Teye Kitcher was the one who voiced it.
He voiced it?
Voiced it.
What was it about?
It was about Pidgin English.
Okay.
And I think it was one of the proudest moments of my life.
Nice.
People calling, oh, Manasseh, we heard your name. Well, you just went to journalism school. We are wondering whether you are the one. And I think it was so great. Then 2007, I did internship at GTV Newsroom. And when I was coming, some of my colleagues said that, well, with GBC, they'll send you to buy roasted plantain and groundnut, so go to a better place where they would allow you to be able to do something. Unfortunately, those stereotypes, unfortunately, they were not true. So within a week, I was able to do stories on my own. And to cut a long story short, 2011, 2012, 2013, the 3 consecutive years, I was the best TV news reporter in Ghana. And I think that experience was what I got from GBC.
Awesome.
So it is only fitting that I'm a TV license ambassador. And before the show ends, everybody here, I think you have paid your TV license as evidence. Everybody here would pay their license, and I think those watching us, there's a code. You are paying only 36 Ghana cedis
for one set.
Yes, so star 447 star 333 hash.
Okay.
So before we finish, I think I'll need evidence that all the guests here have paid their TV
I think
license.
I have to ask Manasseh a question. Have you employed him as a...
No. This is a complete surprise to me.
The ambassador?
Yeah, no. I know he's an ambassador, but we haven't employed him.
Okay. To collect the TV.
No, he's just making the news available to everybody.
I'm not taking it. It will go to GBs.
It will go to us. Thank you so much. Before I go on to Evans, who is watching on the Zoom, and Kojo, who is going to tell us about his journey, where did the investigative journalism bug bite you? Was it here?
No. I think if it had beaten me here, it would have died here. Because the GBC today is not a GBC of those days. I have said this, that in the past few years, some of us are beginning to see a new GBC. That things that people could say on GBC platforms, it didn't exist. I think it started with when I went to Joy FM, and I didn't even go there as an investigative reporter. Somebody just gave me a lead about some theft or stealing. Even though it was less than $1 million, it was still a lot of money at the time. at the Youth Employment Agency. So I did that story. 2 people went to jail. A law was passed, the Youth Employment Agency Act. All the contracts were cancelled except the Zoom Line one, which is the worst of it all. Then we had so much money retrieved, and that is how I got motivated to do more investigative report.
From pidgin English commentary to investigative journalism, passing through GBC and everything. Thank you so much, Manasseh. Kojo, I know you're dying to speak on. Let me go to Evans on the Zoom right now. Evans, Mensah, good evening. Tell us your story about journalism, and then share any occupational hazards you may have navigated in your job.
Well, I hope you can hear me all right.
Loud and clear, Evans. Take it away.
Fantastic. My story begins on the streets of Adabraka. I mean, walking to school, and I used to walk to school back then. This must have been in the mid or early 90s. So I was walking to school one day, and this is an area where you have kids, and like myself, not going to school and hanging around in playing in gutters, etc. And I was lucky enough at least to going to school. And there was one day I was walking to school, and the Graphic Road area where you have the Kole Lagoon. Some of my friends, I saw them whilst I was going to school, were busy playing in the Kole Lagoon. And I stopped for a while and I thought, I wish I could do something about this particular problem. And I felt, well, maybe I could tell stories of children and people like this, and hopefully bring some attention to their cause and bring some focus. Maybe that will change a life. That was when I made the decision I wanted to be a journalist. I remember this very clearly, because today, anytime I drive by Graphic Road or towards the graphics, and I go back the Kole Lagoon, I remember that day. And then of course I was still in, this must have been primary 6, I believe. So I went to JSS and I went to Saito proudly, thinking I want to be a journalist. So when I remember was everybody was telling me I'm crazy. Why do you want to be a journalist? It doesn't pay at all. My family is poor. You want to continue the history of poverty in the family. You don't want to do something else. But I knew it was almost like a calling. So I went to GID. The thing about it is I finished SSS at the time. I had good grades. I could have gone to University of Ghana and do anything else. But I thought, let me go to GID. I wasn't even sure GID was already a degree course, but I said, if it's diploma and that's what I want to do, I will do it. Then I went to GID and realized that they actually had a program which they just started. That is how I enrolled, and the rest is history. So I went in there the second year. I was applying to go to Joy FM to work because I remember listening to the voices on radio from Landremont to Oregon. I wanted to be like that. They rejected me a few times, and then one day it just dropped on my lap almost, because I had gone to the school during vacation and they had written to say they wanted people over from the degree program to come and intern. And the administrator then, who I've been bargaining for 2 years, and had gone there to bargain again, said, look, just been worrying us every started for me. And so when I started journalism back then, all I did was human rights reporting. Doing documentaries about children,
Right.
I won the best DJ award. That must have been 2008 for the best reporter, because of some work I did about a child who was in traffic, who I exposed the story. The child was saved. So that indeed was what I was doing back then, and I got an opportunity to travel. Journalism has, that's where you see the calling versus.
All right. Okay. Well, Evans, thank you so much for that capsule, little history there from Adabraka to, doing a story that touches people's lives. And back into the studio, Kojo Yankson has been absorbing all the little potted histories. Now we want to hear your own. What is your story? What is your
How do I
story?
follow these amazing stories?
No, you also, I'm sure, will inspire somebody else.
Well, Kafui, let me do this first before I even say a single word on this show. Manasseh, here you go. Please pay for 2 TV sets for me. God bless you.
Oh.
Yeah, I have
very much.
I have no problems
You don't have no
with
problem
you.
with
Now.
this.
Thank you. Now, yes, thanks a lot, Manasseh. Let me say this. This is my first time ever on GTV, and it is a childhood dream come true. I've always wanted to be. Every time I've thought of wanting to be on TV, it's GTV I was thinking of, because growing up, it was the only TV station we had. So I fantasized about this moment from my childhood to this day. So Kafui and your team, thank you for making a childhood dream come true. Yes. I appreciate it so much. Manasseh and so many others started their careers here at GTV. I've never worked at GTV. It's my first time here. But I would like to say that GTV started my career because all the idols, the people who made me want to do this, were here at GTV at one time or the other. From Tommy Ananforsen to KKD to Pico Slai to Isamoni, Francisca Ashite Odunton.
Yes.
All these people who Earl Ankra. I used to be such a big Earl Ankra fan.
Mornings.
You know, and all these faces and voices made me feel like it's my Kasapule lifestyle. Maybe that is the career for me. I never even worried for a minute about whether being a journalist or being in the media was lucrative. I never thought about that for a minute. I just wanted a job that allowed me to learn so much so that when I was speaking to an audience, they would be impressed by how much I know. That's all I wanted. That was the pay for me. And so when I first had the opportunity to work at a radio station on UCC campus, a station called Radio Valco.
University of Cape Coast.
Yes, University of Cape Coast. I jumped at it. I was just walking past. They were setting up the studio. I walked in curious to find out what they were doing. And before I knew it, I found myself recording a few liners and sweepers for them. And then they gave me a job. And that was it. That was how I entered broadcasting. I went off and did other things for years. And then after a chance meeting in 2014, where I spoke for 20 seconds to the hearing of the program's director of Joy, I was given the job as the host of the Super Morning Show.
20-second pitch.
I wasn't even pitching. I was talking about something else.
Do you remember what you were talking about?
Yes, I do.
What was it?
I had come to a meeting at Joy FM with the manager of a radio station in Cape Coast called ATL FM.
Yes.
I was stringing there for a while, and they needed a car. No one around had a car at the time. I did. So I volunteered to drive the manager to Accra for a meeting.
From Cape Coast?
Yes. Now,
nice.
On the way to Accra, he told me what the meeting was about. They wanted to do some news collaboration with the Joy News team. So when we got to Accra and we went to the conference room, the program's director came in, and for a reason that I don't understand to this day, the director of the Cape Coast station asked me to tell them our mission. You know, Membo Amanye, right?
Of course, Achami.
So for 20 seconds, I just explained to the program's director, Kofi Ansa, at the time, why we were there, and explained about this project we wanted to do with Joy News. When I finished, after 20 seconds, he just stared at me, you know, for an indeterminate period of time. Then he said, excuse me, went out, came back with Elvis Kwashe of blessed memory, introduced my boss, and then pointed to me and said, and this is Kojo Yankson, the next host of the Super Morning Show.
Okay.
We all, you know, burst out laughing, thinking he was joking, but he was not. He was insistent. He kept asking, what will it take to get you here? I thought he was joking.
Great story.
He followed us to Cape Coast that weekend with Kwesi Twum, and before I knew it, yes, yeah. Before I knew it, I was back in Accra hosting the Super Morning Show.
What's it
something
like?
I had dreamt of,
and it happened
my whole life.
What's it like, man? What are some of the high points for you?
The high point is, I think you will recognize this. The beauty of our job is that you get instant feedback. If you do a good job, your audience lets you know immediately. There is a result, there is an outcome, a problem is solved, and you immediately see the benefit of what you did. if you do a bad job, they let you know immediately.
Big time.
Your audience is the most brutal, unsparing audience, because they expect the best from us. That is my favorite part of this job. The fact that you get instant reactions. There are people who do jobs where until they are quarterly reviews, they don't know whether they're doing a good job or not. We know every day, and I love that. Also, we live in a community, in a society where systems are yet to be perfected. So people rely on the media and the press for so much. If somebody's house is burning, they're going to call a radio station, not the fire service. If there's a roadblock, they are not going to call the highway authority. They will call their local, TV station or radio station. We get the opportunity to solve problems that would have fallen through the cracks. That is a privilege that I do not understate or underestimate.
Thank you so much. We've just gone round the table and we heard from Kojo, from Manasseh, from Teye, from Tina, from Evans, and from Mr. Joe Latte about their journalism story. It's the whole story of journalism that we are talking about here on the GBC Special Roundtable, GBC at 88. We're now going to switch gears and talk about hazards. What are some of the dangers, some of the difficulties, some of the distressing moments of the job? I'm going to start with Mr. Teye Kitcher. I'll jump to Tina in a short while. But Mr. Kitcher, what are some of the hazards of your experience working at the castle and working as a radio and television journalist?
Have you ever heard of the term flying coffin?
Flying coffin.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? It was
a kind of aeroplane that shook.
That was a presidential jet.
Why was it called a flying coffin?
Fokker 28. Yes, because it takes you to, let's say, Fort Lauderdale, and then it will leave you there. You will leave the plane there.
Oh, Trotro.
Sure.
You leave the plane.
Oh, yes. There have been instances where one thought we were going to die. A case in point was when the Northern Electrification Project was, the day it was inaugurated. We went to Bolga, and there's no airport at Bolga, and it was an airstrip. And then the pilot committed to the landing process, and out of the bush comes cows, and so they had to.
You.
I tell you, they had to.
You saw cows when you were in the plane?
Oh, the cows were crossing the runway, and so they had to abort the landing. The plane shot up into the air, and it was like the plane is manufactured in such a way that under pressure the engine will automatically cut off. And so it cut off, and people were like, "Oh, Rawlings was flying the plane, and he was Styles."
Was he flying the plane?
No, he wasn't. It was Air Commodore Manfi, and then former Chief of Air Staff Samson Oje.
And who were the passengers?
I was part.
Yes,
I was there. About half of the PNDC membership. And
what were their demeanors? What was their demeanor?
Let me tell you a story. You will see Muslims calling Jesus and the Christians calling Allah.
Bedlam.
Yes, it was funny. It was funny, dangerous, thrilling, and whatnot. I remember chatting with the old man one day, and I was like, he asked me this question. I told him, this one. And I said, "Do you know what hurts me most?" He said, "No." I said, "Yes. If we had died, they will say the president died with 20 others. My name would never be mentioned." But then the assignment that I can never forget was when I covered the conflict in the north between the Dagomas, the Konkomas, and the Gunjas. It was a three-pronged conflict. I remember we left Accra without an escort. Like, let's say...
Security escort?
Police escort.
Police escort, okay.
So, because we had an assignment, and so we had to leave Accra around 9:10. We drove. When we got to Wipe, there was a roadblock, and the people were speaking in a language we all do not understand. Not knowing they were speaking Konkoma to us. They felt we were Konkoma people, and so if we had said anything in Konkoma, they would have finished us. And there was a bus, which was a burnt out bus, which was burnt with a whole lot of young men, Konkoma boys, you know. But when we got to Accra Boy, I've not been to the mortuary before that time. And here I was driving on the road from, how do you call it, from Tamale to Yendi. And about 10 kilometers from Yendi, all we saw were bodies, left, right. And the stench, it got to me. Because at one village, we had to get down. And I smoke around that time. So I was looking for a place where I can have my cigarette, and I entered the village proper, and I saw a heap. As I was getting close to the heap, then the stench got me. And then I saw flies. There were bodies, human bodies there. You know, and that thing traumatized me. There were times that I would be sleeping and I would jerk out of my sleep, and the stench will be with me. What I saw will be with me. I'll be sweating. It took about 6 months for me to get over that one.
So journalism is not just glamour.
No.
It can also be a traumatizing experience because you are recording events of history, whether they are positive or otherwise. I'll get round the table to hear from the other panelists what their hazardous moments are in or have been in the profession. But you're just watching our special roundtable, Journalism, the Whole Story, GBC at 88. We'll take a quick break. We'll return with more contributions from my guests. Just stick around. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back.
GBC at 88, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana.
Whatever the occasion, with ATL, you can never be out of style. ATL, bringing fabric to life.
88 at 88. It's raining great goodies and value all over Ghana. GBC is 88 years old, and for every business you do on any GBC platform in anniversary month of July, you get 88% extra value. 88 at 88. Do business with us from the 1st to the 31st July 2023 and get extra 88% bonus all over GBC platforms. The benefits are valid till September 30, 2023. 88 at 88. Love the new GBC. Terms and conditions apply. Contact us on 0303-959-604 or 0303-959-605 and to by email sales@gbcghanaonline.com. 88 at 88.
I'm not blaming you for sleeping with another woman.
You threw me out of your house because I slept with your friend.
I'm not angry either, at least not anymore.
Did she put a knife to your throat and forced you to have sex with her?
I just feel pain.
Please don't ask me if I'm okay, because clearly I'm not.
I mean, my life was perfect.
Thinking of you makes me happy.
And then you came along and you just rode it all down to hell.
I'm getting very tired of your little zingers that I am the uncompromising one. You know what, let's just lay it out on the table and get it finished once and for all.
You know one bad thing about being in love, Joe? Is that it makes you vulnerable. It opens up your chest, it opens up your heart, which in turn makes it easy for someone to get inside and mess it out.
Blurred Lines, coming soon to GTV.
Drivers on back when I say who has zebra crossing here will be here. I say a compressor became a zebra crossing now. Gina, I was so making sure the car seeing the and Sana with you.
Liabgum Simula Ben Shadan Pierna Kamale, Carmel Bukata, Numana Zaman Nutambo, Zanjanda Liabgum Simple, now on this so.
Abuna go back here here wa dem of fear market okobia bawe ni awele ka buyi ehun sana go abagule he vitamin A ehun sana hagbeke sani ahale
Jujobadodo kokodi yakatoi enyai ba angau hana mona chishipo yiga chidodo vania Watang atrangau azunububuwe.
Sukuu no ma yako buke adwunu. Okay. No ma na vi sukuu no bara. Otemu de bi ma donwane. Ba wa ya. Okay. Agreken more ngokwe ne eboni jiman. E ma ya le wiade ne nwane. Okay.
Stay tuned to Adult Education every Monday to Friday at 5 p.m. on GTV.
GBC at 8.
Welcome back. You are watching Journalism, the whole story, GBC at 88, a special roundtable on journalism and the media. And we'll be looking at the stories of our panelists and how they got into the profession. We're now looking at hazards. And I want to jump onto the line and speak with Mr. Joe Latte, veteran, a journalist, not just a sports commentator, but he did general commentary as well and outside broadcast. Mr. Latte, what were some of the hazardous moments in your life as a journalist?
So many. You right through a very long period of time in GBC. GBC was considered a danger area because any time any soldiers stayed in the pool, the first place they got in touch with was GBC. And so it was very dangerous working there any time of the day, any time of the night, anything could happen. I remember the first school, 1966, which was staged by Kojo and Afripa. They were the leaders. I remember when Kojo and some of the other officers, they got into Yankson and took control of the Presidential Guard Company. This was a special detachment of soldiers who were responsible for the safety of the president. And they were positioned in certain places. So the soldiers who staged the coup got hold of them. And I remember the leader of them was in an open jeep. They took him from Yankson to Broadcasting House to pick one or two other people, and they drove them out of the house. And we were there. And you know what I was doing at the time?
Tell me.
I was buying food for those of my mates who were on duty that day and were under the control of the soldiers who didn't bother about what they were eating. So I was using a white Yoyo car, and I had to go out and buy food for them. It was terrible. Everybody was under control. That was one episode. The other episode that I have in mind, when Engelbert played against Kotoko, the match was the final match in the African Champions Club series. The match was in Kinshasa. We went to Kinshasa in a Caribou, a propeller plane belonging to the Ghana airport. It was very slow. It took 9 hours to fly from here, to fly from Accra to Kinshasa. And the local people, the police, they made clear that they were not going to play the match lying down. They mounted everything there was for it. It was fearful. When we got down to the airport, they were there making noise. In our hotel, they were around creating noise. The idea was not to get the players to sleep. So they get confused on them. And when we got into the match, I had to go and collect the lineup high up in Tata Rafal Stadium. The place is like a fortress. It takes 80,000 people at a time. So when I went up there to meet the management of the Engelbert team, I had a stopwatch hanging around my neck. And to my surprise, one member of the group of the management of protocol came out boldly and spat straight into my eyes.
The Engelbert guy spat at you?
Was beating.
Wow.
And I felt the best thing was to maybe hit him. Then I remembered that high up there and alone with them, anything could happen. They could just twist my neck and leave me there. Nobody would know. So I controlled myself, took my handkerchief, cleared the spit off from my face, and then got my line up and went down. And it was the stadium was packed. 80,000 people, each one of them carrying a torch lit. So it looked as if the whole stadium was on fire. It was beautiful from that angle, but difficult on the other angle.
Indeed. And this was in 1970, early 70s, correct?
So yeah, it was 71, around 71. 71 and toward the end of the year.
This is a 52-year-old memory, and thank you for preserving it, Mr. Jolat. What was Manasseh wants to know who won the match.
Come again.
Who won the match? Who won the match between Kotoko and Engelbert?
We won. Ghana won the match.
Okay, all right. So
Ghana won.
It ended well.
Ghana won, and I think it was a good thing we won. It was a very difficult match.
All righty.
There was a penalty kick against Ghana, against Kotoko in the dying moments of the match. And the Engelbert boys, they had a penalty kick specialist called Chinabu. And Chinabu, it turned out, it was very interesting, it turned out that kick that day was not taken by Chinabu, although Chinabu was on the lineup. The lineup that we had was Chinabu was in that position.
But he didn't take
it.
He
did not.
Okay.
Later, the kick was going to be taken against Ghana. And hey,
yeah,
Ghana was taken against. Yes, it was against Ghana.
Yes, indeed.
The kick was against Ghana, and Robert Mensah was in goal. He was keeping the post. And he had his magic cap on, the black and white spotted magic cap. Well, that's what people thought it was, that he had some juju
there.
And he was strolling between the posts and waiting for the kick to be taken. And the kick was taken. But as destiny would have it went over the bar.
Over the bar.
When I shouted over the bar,
ow.
There was a gentleman at Kanda later. Later I got to know him. He was a taxi driver. He was eating a plate. He was on a plate of rice. And when the over the bar thing came, he threw the food away and in jubilation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rate. I mean, these are great memories, from the hazardous to the humorous, and it's all in the line of work as journalists. Let's quickly flip over the Zoom to Evans to get his take on the dangerous situations, and then come inside and speak to Tina, Manasseh, and Kojo. Evans, what's been the most dangerous day of your life as a journalist?
My most dangerous day, and following from the legend himself, I really wish this one is really dangerous, because I see what he's talking about in those days, in the heady days of the revolution, that it can't be compared to what we have now. But this was way back in 2016, 2000, 2006, 2005, one of them. And anybody remember the Wahala demonstrations? The Wahala demonstrations was a series of demonstrations that had been held by CJA, the Committee for Joint Action, led by Kwesi Pratt and Co. and some of the political figures had joined. The NDC was in full support of it under the administration. A young journalist had come in as an
the Zoom gods are not on our side today.
And I was actually still. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Evans.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I had come in. I was doing part-time, and I was thrown into the deep end to go and cover the second Wahala demonstrations. I was in the thick of the crowd. They would, walk through the principal streets and then end up at the Arts Park. So the Arts Park was when, Mr. Rawlings, the former president, and others were speaking, and I was right in front of the stage, in the midst of the crowd. And then they called me from the office Thursday, and they asked me to try and get some of the personalities there to come on to Newsfile on Saturday. And unfortunately, the time he called me, a lot of them had finished talking and had left. And I was telling him on the phone that some of the guys he was asking me to get for Newsfile the next day had left. There was a woman who was close by in the crowd who heard me obviously say that people had left, and thought that I was reporting that the demonstration.
I can see where this is going.
Was low on participation. Now, the context to this was the week before they had done the Wahala demonstration one, and the biggest story out of that, the ruling New Patriotic Party then, and used it against them. The biggest story was that this demonstration didn't attract a lot of people, and that people are not interested. It became a big controversy. So the next one, everybody was on the lookout. So this lady hears me say people had left, and instantly thought I was reporting that a repetition of the last demonstration. And then she started screaming, "Oh, you want?"
Scatter.
You go, baby. And remember, I was in the middle of the crowd. So those who were punching me. I was nearly lynched. What I remember correctly was a gentleman, a Rasta guy, who with dreadlocks. I don't know where he came from. He had a horse whip. He started whipping me. So the crowd, because of the whip, the crowd just dispersed, and he targeted me. Then those were kicking me. And then all of a sudden, a gentleman I have never met shielded me from behind and started taking the blows. But of course, because of the crowd, and he started moving me away from the crowd.
Wow.
I was screaming, begging for help, but this gentleman was with me and ushered me all the way from the crowd. Look, I took a lot of blows. The horse whip was for police officers close by who were obviously trying to protect it, and find law and order. They didn't know what was happening. You could see the chaos in the middle of the crowd. Right behind me.
Wow, what a story.
Then moves me, shields me, takes a bit of the blow whilst I break in front, and I was protecting myself. And then gets out, and the police people then rushed, using their batons and their shields to try and push the crowd away and take me into their fold and give me safety. Guess who the gentleman was? The gentleman was Manasseh. That was the first time I met him. I didn't know him then. And then the police officers And that's why I got to know later, they put us in a police van. And guess what happens when they put us in a police van? The crowd started chasing the van, throwing stones at the van. Hey, it's in the van. Manasseh, you know, and the vehicle, the police officers were in front of them, pushing people. It was brutal. They drove us all the way from the crowd. The vehicle actually suffered, was vandalized. But the police officers did a great job, took us out of the crowd, and the crowd ran after the vehicle all the way to the National Theatre traffic light until they left us.
Wow.
You know, and I was driving straight to the office. And look, in the evening, this is what happened. There was a bigger story in the evening because when this was happening, I had seen one of their boys, and this story I have not told before. I see one of their boys climbing up the stage, and I walked. I was trying to climb up. They know he's a prominent figure. If he tells the crowd stop to me and didn't say it, and leaves while the crowd begins. So in the evening, big story. I became the story. Like everything sees no focus on the protest. I became the story. You know, Joy FM journalist, BTake to pop, etc. And we're on Newsnight. Kofi was a host and asked me, did I get any of the organizers to assist me? And I mentioned one of their boys. I believe it was, I saw, but I said Kwabena. And so they called him on the phone. And, you know, and because the whole, everybody was incensed by what has happened, DJ had issued a statement, the Media Foundation had issued a statement. He said, no, it wasn't him. And now I'm a pathological liar. And he's sitting at bus stop right now. I should describe what he's wearing. I described it. They said they should send the team to come and watch what he's wearing to see whether it matches what I said. He went there, and it turned out it was his brother. That also became another big story.
Okay.
But yeah, that was my experience.
What a story. What Evans you don't know is that the Rasta head guy was actually your guardian angel, the guy with the horse whip. So be grateful to that man.
And I was a cartoon on the front pages the next day. The horse whip with the Rasta guy.
Yeah, you're lucky it happened in social media. I thought you'd have been a meme. So thank God for that. From Evans on Zoom to Tina in the studio. How dangerous is it to be a print journalist?
Well, I must say that from the First Republic to the Fourth Republic, there has been intermittent attacks on press freedom from all sides. Sometimes it's like the state institutions or state papers are favored, and then on other days too, people think that the private press are favored. But the fact still stands that journalists are always under attack.
Did you ever feel that you were under
Well, I was walked out of a press conference by a former first lady, and it was so humiliating. But mine was just a tip of the iceberg, because we had no names mentioned.
Oh, okay. Investigative guy always wants to investigate, you know. So yeah,
let him
investigate. He's going to the source now.
You see, but that was because my surname was the same as somebody else, so she didn't want me at that press conference, and I was never assigned to cover her again. And we had our former editor, Mr. Charles Nikwe, who was nearly lynched at a press conference organized by the state registered nurses because he had earlier on published a story and they had rebutted. So they were holding a press conference to tell their own side of the story. And he went there, though disguised, somebody saw him and they ran after him. He had to be saved by the organizers themselves. And we had our cameraman who was also assaulted at the Independence Square, right in the glare of the whole public. The whole Ghana saw him being assaulted. We also had Doreen Hammond, now the editor of The Mirror, and then our camera woman. They all had their fair shares of assaults. But sometimes you sit back and you ask yourself, how free is the media and what is our independence like? Because sometimes you just are called by the editor, go and cover this. I remember I was about 7 months pregnant, and the editor then Christian Agri, walked into the newsroom. There was nobody there. I was there with the news editor. Tina, I said, yes, sir. You have to go to Winnipeg to cover an assignment immediately. Wow. Fine. They said that you should always be ready like a soldier to cover. But those times the road was not good. And even the vehicle that we went with, I still thank God that I was able to make it through. But we've had instances where some female colleagues lost their pregnancies. We don't want to mention, I don't want to mention them because maybe they'll be watching us. Yes. But that is how hazardous the work is. But then we also look at the other side. Sometimes state media, we go, or print media, we go together with private media, you go to cover an assignment, and the next day, or even, well, they use some of their stories in the evening. The next day you see the story and you wonder whether we are coming from the same stable. So you realize that there is a divide, and the independence of the media, I must say, has been thrown to the dogs. We just don't do journalism as it was in the years gone by, some decades ago. Okay. We just look at, this is the story, I have it.
Big headline.
Big headline, breaking the news, without asking other sources. So when it comes out, you're not going to do a rejoinder, you're not going to do backtracking. Sometimes that's what results in some of these assaults. Okay. You see? All so right. That's the problem. And we've had journalists who have worked through, and I don't think they were ever attacked. We've had the women at, we had Aforo-Yeboah, Mrs. Gifty Afegidazi, who rose to become one of our best journalists, GJA presidents. We had Wendy Siama, the Mavis Kitchers, and all those. We had from the Times table. We were doing the evening news.
Exactly so.
Yes.
Right.
And we did a story one afternoon, and the next day, at that time, it was terrible. That morning.
What happened?
The man whose story we had used, it was true though, but sometimes when you see a story black and white, you tell yourself, no, I didn't say this, I didn't say that.
He was angry.
He came with macho men.
How many?
There were 6 in the car, and they demanded to see the editor.
Which was you?
Of the evening news. No,
it wasn't you.
It was not.
Luckily, it wasn't you.
But we still had to shield,
of course,
the editor of the evening news then.
Did they use their macho on you, or you managed to repel them?
No, in fact, our security men came to our rescue.
Shout out to the security.
Yes, shout out to them.
Shout out to them.
Yes.
Thank you. It's a kaleidoscope of stories. Manasseh, thank you so much, Tina. Manasseh, you are in investigative journalism. You put your nose where people don't want you to put your nose. Have you ever felt threatened? What's your most dangerous day as an investigative journalism?
Well, it is difficult to tell, because sometimes you are saved from things you yourself don't know. I have gone through different kinds of dangers, but the worst one, I didn't know about it. I only got to know years later. That was in 2017. I was doing a story on the Metro Mass, and then they had done valuation at STC. So I was going there for an interview, and when I entered the MD of STC, his office, Nana Komia, who is a friend, there was a man there who was with the security, one of the security institutions. He's now a big man there. And when he heard me, I was the one coming. He waited, and when I entered, he said, "You are the one who were coming to arrest." And I said, "Arrest me for?" Then he named a private company, named the period that he led the team to conduct that operation. And I said, "For what?" That I was coming there to extort money. So they laid ambush to arrest me. And what happened in this company was I was doing an investigation and went there, and they gave me a fat envelope. I don't know whether it was cedis, dollars, or whatever denomination. I said I wasn't going to take it. They did everything. I said no. Then the head or the CEO was outside the country. So they said I should speak to him. Otherwise, he would think that they didn't convince me enough. And I said, no, just tell him I thank him, but this couldn't be a gift.
By force gift. They wanted you to take it by all means.
Not knowing whilst they were trying to get me to take it, these security people had come to lay ambush. So that if I just stepped out, I would be handcuffed with the cash I came to extort. And I don't think there's ever a way anybody would have believed me if I was on the front pages of going to extort money. And this happened to be the very first investigation I did, the JIDA investigation. I don't think I would have remained a journalist after that. So this was, I heard it and I felt people could be very wicked. But that aside, I've also had a number of death threats. And
death threats?
Yes.
How do they come?
Some email. One came, the first one I reported to the police, CID headquarters. In 2017, it was a text message. Then 2020, it was an email. There have been times that I was followed. I remember Joy or the Multimedia group. They did so well after the stories. Sometimes you felt so threatened that they would take you out of your house to a hotel. So in one instance, I was followed at Sun Lodge, and they had to change the hotel to Aliza Hotel because the security there was a bit better. There were times I had to, on 2 occasions, I had to leave the country, and there was a time I had to be provided with a police escort. And I will say that a lot of the dangers that I faced, real danger that I encountered, was in the presidency of Akufo-Addo. And I have said it many, many times that, look, I did investigations, and some of the hardest hitting stories. You can remember the John Mahama Ford scandal in the heat of the 2016 election. They offered me security and I said no, because I felt so secure. But from 2017, when I started reporting to the police headquarters, things haven't really been easy, and security is such that you cannot mention everything or say everything out there. Yes. But, and apart from that, there have also been the emotional and psychological side of it, to the extent that there was a time I had to see a clinical psychologist for therapy. Yes, it is something that we rarely talk about, but the job also has serious challenges to mental health.
Yeah.
And as for the legal ones, the first time I received a defamation suit, I went straight to the washroom.
The money was big.
But
how much were they suing you for?
I think 10 million.
Is that what expedited your movement to the
well, reading how you've been commanded to do this. Fortunately, the first 6 that I faced, like the stories I did, I was sued 6 times for defamation for my investigations. All of them, when I filed my defense, they dissolved. Actually, they ran away from their cases. But not every media house is able to get resources to defend. So if you happen to find yourself in a situation, I was lucky I worked with an organization that was prepared to stand by me, even including those who sued me for my Facebook comments. Multimedia Group actually paid for the legal fees and everything. So these are some of the challenges that you face, and in the era of social media too, I think you'll see the trolls and the attacks and all of that. And these ones, they don't, people outside would think that, well, you have a thick skin, you're fearless, but you are just human like everyone
else. It takes a toll.
Yes.
It takes a toll. Well, thank you for sharing. And for those of you who are glamorizing the profession, well, we hope we are showing you everything, warts and all, so you know what you're going into before you get into it. Our WhatsApp number for messages is 055-3983-405. 055-3983-405. We're looking at journalism, the whole story. It's a big GBC at 88 roundtable. And Kojo will tell me about his most hazardous day in the job.
You would think, Kafui, that being sheltered in the studio hosting a morning show would not come with that many hazards. But I think the danger comes from the content of what we do and the people who are affected by it. So I've got two examples of slightly harebrained situations that we got into outside the country. We went to Nigeria, during the Ebola crisis. Nigeria happened to have a great track record of managing it. A guy from Liberia flew there with it. They were able to trace all his contacts. About 20 people in total got infected. They were able to quarantine them all. They lost about 5 or 6 of them. The rest of them recovered. So we thought that was a brilliant example we as a country could learn from. We hadn't yet had any cases. So my team and I went to Nigeria to try and find out, how they had managed it. It was a very educational trip. But in one particular town, for some reason, as soon as we started speaking to them, they heard our foreign accents, and Ebola was in the headlines. Somebody just shouted, "These guys have Ebola." And these people got really upset. We had to jump into our truck and drive off, and they chased us. They chased us for about 18 kilometers. Young men in the back of the truck with machetes.
What was going through your mind, man?
That is this it? Am I going to die in some backwater town in Nigeria at the outskirts of Lagos? But we lost them. That's just one example. There was another one with some security guys in Sierra Leone. They had these mudslides. We went there to cover that. There were some security guys working for somebody who is close to the vice president. We wanted to interview the vice president, and these guys roughed us up a little bit, but somebody intervened before it got serious. The real danger, though, is when you get a credible threat. I know you can relate to this. When you get a credible threat, and this happened when on our show we did this. We came across some documents that revealed a massive visa scam in Parliament, where members of Parliament were acquiring visas for people who were not their spouses or children, but they were pretending they were, and so forth. This is a very common thing. And we got some documents and we did the story. The very next day, it was in the evening around 4 p.m, I was still at work. I got a phone call. The first time I said hello and the person hung up. Then the same number called again. I said hello and he said, "Kojo Yankson." I said, "Yes." "You live at," and he said my address. I said, "Yes, who is this?" "Your son goes to school at," and he mentioned my son's school. Then I went quiet. I said, "Who am I speaking to?" He said, "It doesn't matter. Just know that the things you talk about affect people. I'm trying to get out of this country. The person who is trying to help me has stopped because of you. Let me tell you, if I stay in this country, only one of us can live."
Wow.
Then he hung up. I reported it to the police.
Of course.
They tracked him down.
They did?
Yeah, they did.
You're lucky in my case.
They weren't able to. Yeah, he called with a number, so they were able to.
In my case, I believe they didn't do it. If they wanted to, they could.
They could have. Yes, they could have. They tracked him down. I guess I was fortunate.
Wow.
But I cannot describe the chill that went down my spine when this guy, in a calm voice, told me where I live, where my son goes. That's the part that traumatized me, And I've got to say, if anybody else had quit at that time, I would have understood. If any other journalist had decided to quit because of that, I would have understood. And maybe one day I'll need a therapist to explain to me why I didn't didn't quit. But these threats are real. They're a very real part of the work we do. And I suppose the last thing I wanted to say is that it's not always the people at the top who threaten you, but those hangers-on who benefit from them. They are the ones most affected by the stories we do.
Exactly.
And they are the real threat, if you ask me.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Tina, you wanted to say something?
Yes. What I want to say is that perhaps some of these threats and assaults and attacks are coming from the fact that when you look at the terrain now, media independence is no longer there. Why do I say this? Because now we have media houses which are owned by politicians.
Political ownership of the media.
Political ownership of the media. So they virtually direct the content and direction of the media that they have set up. Why? Because they are looking at their commercial, because they have to advertise and all that. Sometimes all these adverts, you listen and you ask yourself, are we doing journalism here now? Or sometimes it's on the verge of, I don't know, like we are joking.
I agree with what she's saying, because our problem right now is about the political ownership of the media that diffuses stories.
Yes.
It diffuses the story. You wouldn't know whether they are, what you are hearing is the truth, or that is an agenda of a particular station for a particular political party. To be honest with you, I don't listen to political morning shows. I don't watch politically skewed discussion programs. I prefer to watch something like with the Multimedia Group, Joy News, because they call in experts to come and educate all of us on an issue. They don't call politicians. When I was head of news here, Wobi tells you, if there's an issue and you call a politician, you get a query
immediately.
Oh, one time.
Yes, but now we don't have it.
You know, so you call. If you don't get, call me and let me direct you. Don't call a politician, because you come and equalize. Yes. And we will not get to understand whatever it is. Call one of we have so many universities, public and private.
Professors, experts, subject matter people.
So if it's about the economy, call someone from the economics unit.
Yeah.
If it's about politics, call someone from the political science department. If it's about gender, but you don't get up and call a politician to come and talk about an issue. No.
Yes, so now that the politicians have occupied the media space, it means that most of the media houses have lost that independence that we are talking of, media freedom, media independence. Where is that independence? Where do you draw the line?
Where's the solution? If you could wave a magic wand to solve issues, how would you solve it?
We should know, if we are professional journalists, then we must know that we are the appendage of the constitutional chapter 12 constitution, the chapter 12, which deals with the independence and freedom of the media, and therefore we are the only professionals who can hold the government to order, because we are the fourth estate of the realm. But where is that fourth estate now?
I agree with you, but unfortunately we find ourselves in a situation where now the politicians set the agenda and the media laps it up like Hausa people.
I like Hausa.
Apart from that, only some media houses don't do that. And I can point to the multimedia group. It's not because Kojo is here.
Is it that we have too many stations? Yesterday, I decided to flip through my dials from the 80s to the 107s. I counted 59 radio stations in Accra alone. 59. If you take out VOA and Radio France and BBC, that's 56 Kenyan radio stations in Accra. Too many?
To be perfectly honest, if we had a sophisticated enough audience and if they had access to enough information, it wouldn't matter.
Thank you.
It wouldn't matter how many stations there are out there. They would be well informed enough to choose the best ones. They would be able to gravitate towards the ones that actually inform them. But we have this ecosystem that the politician has a stranglehold over. And so it is the politician who determines what information the audience gets access to. So their own enlightenment is limited by the people who are benefiting from their ignorance.
Thank you.
You know, it's a very difficult situation. I've got to say, Manasseh pointed out that he hasn't had more threats in his career than he's had under the current government. And there is some truth to that. There is an atmosphere that I don't think the current government wants to admit to, but it is real. It is real. There is a certain atmosphere of wanting to strong arm the narrative of the media. So even at Multimedia, where we've made a decision that we want our audience to be educated, so when there is an issue, we bring those who know the most about it to come and talk about it. We're not bothered about what the politician thinks, whether the politician wants a turn or not. Recently, we had a conversation about free SHS. The president went to Cape Coast and was speaking about it and said a media house is waging a campaign against free SHS. All we did was open the phone lines. That was it. That's the campaign. We opened the phone lines for people who are experiencing SHS to tell us about their experience. We heard from students, we heard from teachers, we heard from parents. That was the campaign that we were waging. But you think about it, this is the president saying it. So the average Ghanaian is hearing his president saying that the media is waging a campaign against something that, for all intents and purposes, should be a good thing. Free SHS, it should be a good thing. If the president says a media house is waging a campaign on it, how does that go down in the mind of the average Ghanaian? So this is what I'm saying, that if you are not fortunate enough to have a government that actually wants its people to be enlightened, you will end up with a media that is being narrowed into a corner by politicians who only want their agenda to prevail.
Manasseh, what do you want to say about it?
Yes, I want to add another angle to this discussion, which is also business people.
Yes.
So it isn't only politicians or politics that is disturbing the space we have. You have quite a number of businesses, and for me, I have dealt with a few. When I did a JIDA investigation, 3 major companies or groups of companies were implicated. After that scandal, they all went into media.
The 3 companies?
Yes. Then there was a pharmaceutical company that had an issue in the country. And then they met journalists. After that, they also went into the media. So what I'm just trying to say is that there are also a good number of media organizations, well-funded, that are not doing journalism. Maybe somebody is into a business, they make a lot of money, they set up the media to partly promote their business. So we have a lot of them in the country. They have a lot of following. But if you look at them critically, they are not doing journalism. And there's a good reason they can't even do critical journalism. Because the government of the day, whether NDC or MPP, can send the taxmen to their other businesses. So you have only a tiny fraction of the media in this country doing journalism. Yet when people want to judge, they consider all of them.
They lump
everybody together and say media, journalists.
You see, that is because the their staff, the business, whatever you're saying, they project themselves as journalists.
And they're masquerading as journalists?
No, when they are sitting there giving their news and whatever, and then they ask people to phone in, and that is where the problem arises, because they have no hold on anything.
I like what you are saying. I'm a lecturer now.
So you teach broadcast
journalism? I teach broadcast journalism. And I always tell my students that one of the things that annoys me and which helps in the lumping up of all of us journalists, it's like I have a radio station. I go to my village and I see someone who is so good as an MC at a funeral, and I invite the person to Accra, put him behind a microphone or a camera, run this show. What do you think will happen? Someone without training. Kojo had some training. Manasseh, myself, Tina, you too. So whoever says that anyone can be a journalist, it's not correct. Can you get up and say you are a doctor when you've not been to the medical school? Can you call yourself a nurse when you've not been to any nursing training school? Can Kojo call himself an economist or a banker when he's not been to any school? You know, so
it's a training thing?
It is. It is, because if you are well trained, you know what the ethics are all about, and they will guide you. You understand? Manasseh would have taken that money, but he knows what the ethics are and what can happen. So that helped him. You understand me? So this issue of anybody can be a journalist, so any politician can get up, set up a TV station or radio station and bring an untrained person to come there and pursue his agenda.
Talking of training.
Yes.
Yes. You are trained journalists who've gone through how many years of experience.
Yes.
So in setting up these media institutions, I believe that it's time that they look for maybe experienced and retired editors and to take some of the teaching positions in those schools, you see, and then they can help. We have them around.
Yes.
We have them there.
The thing is also for people like Manasseh, the younger ones, for you to get the kind of qualification necessary for you to become lecturers and lecture in some of these schools. Because now, almost every radio or TV station has, how do you call it? A training program, unaccredited.
Unaccredited.
And they churn out people and they charge expensively.
Well, even the well-established training institutions, I have followed journalists elsewhere in the US who have first degree or masters, and because of the amount of experience they have, they are given the opportunity to teach. So we are in a system that people look more at the certificate.
Yes, exactly.
You have somebody like Kojo growing up reading his article, John Sidney Abukri. So if you take him to a journalism class to teach features writing, I don't think somebody who just completes, goes to their master's or PhD without any experience or having or never practiced would be able to do a better job. I think the good thing they are doing these days, some of them invite the industry players.
Practitioners.
Practitioners, yes. So I go to GIJ to teach investigative reporting, University of Ghana and other schools. But I think they should do more of that so that you don't have somebody who reads to teach. The academic aspect is right, but you also need a practical.
Indeed.
Manasseh, you see, I agree with I know I agree with Manasseh. All right, but I'm saying that those of us in the field,
should teach.
We need to go because that's what we want. you need to qualify to be a lecturer when you have your masters. Let's upgrade ourselves so that we can take advantage of because we are needed there.
I think the point he's also making is that sometimes it's a craft, and so the practice is
that
what
is what so I don't want to teach.
That
I want to be an investigative journalist.
Yes, exactly.
I have the skills.
Yes.
So you can get me doing investigative reporting. But we should find a way of also making my skills useful to those
the ones who are coming up.
So that if I don't want to go into academia,
you can
still be useful.
Forgive me, Kafui, I know you want us to, but while we're talking about education and training, I agree with you, Mr. Kitcher, so important. But I think there's a bigger problem. So I discovered just this week when Mr. Udate Lamte called me that I was going to be on this show. By the way, another of my heroes. When he called me about this, I called a few friends of mine at GIG, and I wanted to know, typically in a year, how many people graduate with a bachelor's degree from GIG. He said it's usually between 1,000 and 1,500. Okay, this has been the typical figure since 2012. Before then, it was about 700, 600. So from 2012 till now, 1,000 to 1,500. Let's assume that it's 1,000. You're looking at about 11,000 people who have been trained by GIG since 2012. Where are they? Are they working in journalism? Well, let me give you a hint. So now they do masters at GIG. There are 4 master's programs: masters in development journalism, masters in media management, masters in public relations, and then masters in journalism.
Yes.
A typical year group will have about 700 master's students. Out of the 700, in the last year group, there were only 12 who were studying journalism. The rest were doing public relations and the likes. Okay, so the profession itself is not even attracting enough people so that we can then give them the quality education that you both, talked about. It's not attractive enough. And there are reasons for that. I'm certain Evans will give you a perspective of his own. But people don't seem to look upon journalism the way we do.
That's right.
Good question.
You have a point.
Good observation there. I like the statistics that you gave us, Kojo. Let's jump off to the Zoom and find out what Evans has to say about this. When he was going to journalism, his family was, hey, don't perpetuate the cycle of poverty. Don't go there. But he's there. How do we make it more attractive for people to choose to want to study journalism so that we can improve the quality of the field? Evans.
And Kojo just hit the nail on the head, and that's why I've been dying to introduce that dimension to the conversation, which is the economic financial angle, which for me is a bigger threat to the survival of journalism, quality journalism in this country. That is the reason why most people, as Kojo has just illustrated with the numbers at GIG, will graduate and want to do PR or some form of corporate communications and do journalism. That explains why the thousands of people he just illustrated who graduate from the first degree program and from the diploma program do not end up in newsrooms doing journalism. They end up doing other things, including working so hard either to be a receptionist or just to go on out there and go into corporate communications. Why? Recently, a report was published by the School of Communication Studies, and it showed how horrendous the economic conditions of many journalists are in this country. And I was fascinated to learn in that report that out of the huge numbers of journalists that they had polled, that they had spoken to and surveyed, 47%, almost 50% of that number, and at most 1,000 CDs. 47%. This is the University of Ghana School of Communication Studies report. And at most, think about it for a minute, Kafui Dey. At most 1,000 CDs a month, up to 47%. And most of these people, to make it worse, in the organizations in which they work, they don't have benefits. Benefits that you get in any proper employment, you don't have. They don't have health care, paid leave, family support. They simply have nothing. That is what we are not attracting the best. And that is why even for those who go to journalism school, they go to journalism school as a means to an end. Look, I finished journalism school. Most of my colleagues at Static Flashback, I can count on my fingers about 5 of them who are still in the profession. Almost everybody else has gone on to do something entirely different from journalism. In our class, majority of the people were doing PR. And we used to tease them that PRO, to be a PRO is to be a glorified messenger. It never stopped them from chasing that dream because that paid more. Because you'll be in a proper organization, that they will pay your snake, they will pay you a bit more. You'll not be earning 1,000. We're talking about 2023. That for me is a bigger threat. It's the reason why politicians are setting up stations that they get anybody from across the country to sit on the radio. Is the reason why journalism has become one that all the problems of this country, you hear people, the first place they'll go is media. But then they forget, and this is a controversial point, but I think we need to examine it. We have the media we deserve. We're not ready to invest money in it. We're not ready to pay to get quality. I mean, a lot of us on this platform, almost all of us, have gone to school quite extensively. We've achieved and gone ahead to do advanced studies, sometimes out of this country. You come back, and if you don't have the passion, don't see this as a calling, you certainly won't survive. You'll be looking for this to be a means to an end. And for many people, journalism is a means to an end. Make a name for yourself and then use that to get into corporate, which is what many people have done. And that is why we have the quality of journalism that we have. And I think that's the bigger thing. That's why politicians will take advantage of us. They are paying for the news items that we publish, because if your media is not paying you well, and the politicians come around and gives you money to publish something, well, people are more inclined and susceptible to that particular kind of lure. And until we address that problem fundamentally, and we've been talking about this for ages and haven't fixed it, I think it's getting worse because the economic condition is also tighter. We're going to have this problem and talk about it for quite a while.
Oh, succinctly put, Evans, and we'll just take a quick break on the tip of that, and then when we return, we'll take your messages. You've been sending us a lot of messages on 055-3983-405. I can't wait to read them. It's journalism, the whole story. It's the special roundtable right here at GBC. We're celebrating 88 years. We'll be right back for your messages and wrapping up thoughts from our panel. Don't go anywhere. Messages time. I'll tell you.
Told me Mama K, it's small lowa. She's an FA papa. Kema here, equal low holo, ni yese fish tag ye. Low, ni FDA, GSC, ke Fisheries Commission womne. Chomo mwa papa me shwe. Kajabene amo, bona nyele. Bona chuheni, ke boni atolaha. Ene hewo, akadi adekai, ni chunwake, na bako klabe, ni moni holu enwe. Ewu etat, no chunwake, le timoni sale hwehami. Kengbe na, bente lo edenteno.
Wanya hewa wo miake wo holu papa. Machobo loko meyelo na shine. Ko hello ni ichoeku, eto enu ewele, na blame nshi. Belo ebe fresh danasha. Alo amoye gbe papa no. Titri emang. Loni na agbako kra behe. Akono ni engma hue eno be. Tania package le jogbang. Jeno na toye cement paper mi. Cement paper no koyemi. Ni hi ha ogbomochoe.
Lo shla kobi kekakwe. Kahe katokle jogbang. Eto mlempe ba chonake ekpakpani ejake wo ke eyinpo ona. Kaimo hebo lo papa no na gbomochoe wale. Safe fish here, Hewale Papanamu. Adafine the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, the Fisheries Commission, the American be wa Kencho USA ID.
GTV, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana.
GBC at 88, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana. GBC at 88, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana. GBC at 88, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana.
Welcome back. Journalism, the whole story. And it's now time for your messages. 055-398-3405. Here they come. Wow. Finally, I get to see my role model growing up. Mr. Teye Kitcher inspired me to be a creative writer and speaker. I cannot thank you enough. That's God's way for one of my favorite places in Ghana, Osu. My question to Mr. Teye is, how can we improve news reporting? Can you speak about the subject investigative journalism by reporters working at GBC under a code of ethics and guidelines of the organization from Alhaji Dawuda Madina Estate? Please take note of the questions because we use them in your wrap-up. Okay, so good evening. Today's discussion must continue next week because we are learning a lot from it. Yes, thank you so much. We took over Talking Point like nobody's business. David Jawara Banye at Kaleo. Without any controversy, free and independent news media, which are fundamental in fostering democratic governance, where they play a vital political role in keeping government and citizens aware of what is going on. One of the basic assumptions of democracy is that power rests with the people. Long live GTV. And you say, nowhere has a journalist in GTV been caught or disgraced for complicity in corruption. Okay. You have your stats. We're happy if that's the fact. It's really intriguing, some of the stories, especially Mr. Late's testimony. However, I was a bit confused. Was it a match Ghana played? Well, Kotoko played against Engelbert in 1972. So Kotoko was representing Ghana in that particular African Cups nation. So it's a Ghanaian club representing Ghana. But they were not playing for the Black Stars. It was a club competition. All right? Okay, more messages coming in. Media pluralism is good, but too many untrained journalists who use the power of the mic to destroy others just for personal or partisan interest. There's a need for standardization and professionalism. Somebody's echoing your point there, Tina. That's Prof in Tema. Okay. Good evening, GTV. Good job. We will pay our TV license if you continue this path. Star 4447 star 333 hash. Pay now. By the way, Kojo has paid. He gave the money to Manasseh, and Manasseh paid for him. Nice show. Love to invite Kojo and his news team to our beach cleanup. Okay, all right. So, Kafui, that's 29th July. Togbe is asking you for your presence there. Chris, a radio and TV presenter, the show has really empowered me a lot. In fact, the education and experience is rich for us, the up-and-coming journalists. Thank you, GBC. Thank you so much. We're really happy for you. Good morning. Good evening to you, Ibrahim, watching live from Ningo Prampram, greeting all the panelists. You feel sorry for the way journalists have been treated in this country. May God protect all journalists in this country. Thank you for this insightful program. Great hearing from Joe Lati, the legend. Tell Manasseh Navag is watching and we are proud of him. Abdul Latif. What is Navag? What is Navag?
It's some WhatsApp platform that is supposed to be non-aligned voters. But the politics there is more Navag, I greet you.
I've always been scared for Manasseh because of his investigations and the kind of stories he covers. And he just confirmed my concern. Journalism is indeed a dangerous path. May God guide you all. Manasseh, I hope Movement is watching and taking lessons from you, from Chris Tete Ate in Manya Krobo. I'd like to encourage my colleagues and seniors on the show, especially, never to give up, but continue with their efforts to become real watchdogs of society. This is from Christopher Siedu, a professional journalist and acting regional director, GBC, Upper West Region. Thank you, but I don't have a name. I love you all. Tell those politicians to stop interrupting the media houses. They are corrupt. Why would they interfere with journalism? Journalism should be independent to investigate and deal with any wrongdoer. I totally agree with your panelists on the issue of politically motivated ownership of our media. The biggest threat to our journalists today isn't an outside one. The politicians owning and controlling our media space is our bane. Mohammed Gali Salam, who is a lecturer at Kesben University College, Kumasi, he says he's really enjoying the discussion. He's going to use most of the narratives given by us to teach his students regarding some of the threats of journalism, especially the negative ones. Thanks again for a wonderful program. More. Mash Taylor in Yendi, thank you GBC for the wonderful opportunity to hear my favorite Mr. Kitcher when he was a newscaster. It was lovely. Good evening, congratulations to all of you. Women have been into sports even in Madam Tina Afro's time, track and field and other disciplines. Remember Rose Hart, Alice Anum, Juliana or Hemming. There wasn't women's football, but there were other disciplines. He also liked to remind Mr. Joe Lati that the match in question was played in January 71, not late 71. Please allow for him. He's 96. I'm happy that he can remember all these things. If he misses a few months, no wala, please. Thank you, but thank you. We got the point. I remember the Sada story, for instance. Manasseh came to tell us a story we all believed. Later, there were publications showing the true story of the Sada project. So I feel like the new faces are making the profession less respected. Sometimes I feel like you journalists use your skills to spread inaccurate news, which makes someone sitting elsewhere feel that this job is very easy. All I need to do is find a radio, TV or TV station and talk anyhow. So the message is, come on. Wow. Mr. Teye Kitcher, aka Mr. Shoe. Was that your nickname?
Yes, that was the nickname late former President Rawlings gave me because he felt I got good shoes.
You got good shoes.
That was why I asked you.
Have you considered talking to guys like Cameron Dodo, Professor Emeritus Manasseh Kondu and Co? Yes, we have. Thank you so much for the lead. Anyway, why is it that many journalists end up with political appointments? Good evening to you all. I'm very happy for the insights this evening. I'm learning a lot this evening. Greetings to my brother Manasseh Azure from Akundare Paul, Awuni Bisa in Bongo. We're covering the whole country like a blanket. The work of a journalist is the same as a pastor. God will reward you. Listen, we can't take that to the landlady with the pastors. Good point.
We accept it. We receive it.
All right. Now all these politicians have their one radio station to do their bidding. The beautiful ones are not yet born. Somebody said this because the ugly ones refuse to die. But I don't know whether that is true. How do you maintain independence and objectivity as a state broadcaster, especially on matters of corruption, and not incur the wrath of the government of the day? That's Kwesi from Nungwa. Don't know how much time I have left, but I'll keep speaking until I hear a voice in my ear. My name is Jagri Boaz. I'm learning much as a young and up-and-coming journalist. Please tell Azure, Mr. Azure, I need his contact. What should I keep in mind? Any advice? We'll get advice for you, don't worry. It's a student journalist schooling at Topman Multimedia Institute in Accra, Kaneshi. He wants us to talk next time about news publication. You guys want to make this a weekly affair? Good evening, I'm enjoying this show. The stories are inspiring. Manasseh is just an asset to the country. He should be motivated to never give up. Kojo is such a gem. He was born to do this. He's the reason I listen to Joy SMS when he's on leave. I'm sorry to say I don't listen to his back. Please. Oh, I beg you. A lot of young journalists need to learn a lot from these veterans. I believe journalism is a calling. Tina and Mr. Teye Kitcher, people are loving you. Good evening. I'm David Kafui Dey. Can't the Journalists Association take any action against members whose conduct is inconsistent with the ethics of the profession, whether they are working for politicians or not? Most professions impeach members who misconduct themselves. Justice from Saboba. Corruption has taken over almost every department in the country. Our last hope is the media. Please, and please, hold your lines tight. GBC, this show has to continue. Wow, what a story. Thank you so much for the story. This is from Yankee. Sam Bannerman in the USA. Tune into the show. It's sad how our gatekeepers are being put to this kind. It's mind-boggling life threats. My regards to Manasseh. Very proud of him. By Okoleda Dan Foster Kaf. And this is Daniel Owusu of Japan, who says he's a founder and executive of Danwus Consulting. He wants to use this platform to thank Mr. Teye Kitcher for giving him the opportunity to be interviewed on Unique FM on entrepreneurship in Ghana in 2019. Much love to the panelists. Good job, GBC. I have only 2 media houses, GBC and Multimedia. Please add new times, because Tina, they are doing a great job there. There's a media house that I won't mention their name here, and that is what they do. Whenever there's a public issue, they call opposition politicians to express their views and not expert views on the issues. We spoke about that here. Well-composed panel. Shout out to our producers, Ivan and Pearl, and the entire team. A repeat is required. This is Lazarus Man. I just can't change my channel. Very intriguing experiences shared. Kudos, Kaf, for your question line. We shout out to the producers, Good evening. I'm enjoying the show. Show is very inspiring. There was also an instance where there was a faction litigating in a chieftaincy dispute in the Ghana traditional area, threatening to lynch me for publishing a story that didn't go in their favor. This is Charles Nikwe, former editor, Ghanaian Times. You know him, Tina? Yes. So he's on. Okay, so I wish I could read them. I know they are coming. Look at that. We'll be here till tomorrow morning reading messages. So I'll just have to go around the panel and just get there. What's one thing that you want to leave our viewers with? I think I'm going to start with Mr. Latte. He has been here on this earth long. Oh, he's not around. Oh, I wish I could hear it. 96 years on earth. He probably would have a lot to say. But I'll start with Evans. I don't know whether Evans is on the line. Evans, let me go to the studio. We'll get him. So I'm going to start with ladies first. Tina, what's one thing you want to leave people with? We have barely 5 minutes, so 30 seconds.
Well, the cure to this is for journalists to act as professionals and respect the code of conduct. The GJA has a code of conduct, and then we should also know that we have the backing of the 1992 Constitution, which gives us the freedom and everything.
Awesome.
Above all, we are a force to reckon with. In 1993, when the opposition did not go to parliament, it was the media that really checked the government to put it on its feet, on its toes.
Okay.
And you cannot do away with the media.
Awesome.
Because as President Jefferson said to the Continental Congress on the importance of a free press to keep government in check, he said, as for this one I have to quote
it.
If he had to choose between a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter. It underscores the importance of the media. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Kitcher,
yes.
What's your takeaway to take us home?
People out there, Ghanaians, should know that no journalist will ever be against the people. In times like these, where people will feel that journalism is under threat, it is still the journalist who will be on the side of the people. And we should continue to tell people-centered stories.
People-centered stories.
They are very important. Because if you are for the people, you need people-centered stories. Roads are not good here. Drains are not good here. People might die here. Those are the stories. So that we resume our role as the agenda setters.
Awesome. Kojo.
Can I tell a story?
Tell a story.
Love stories. Okay. So once there was a mouse that lived on a farm. And the farmer bought a mouse trap. The mouse got very concerned. He went over to the chicken and said, "Brother Chicken, the farmer has bought a mouse trap." Chicken said, "Well, I don't care. I'm not a mouse." Then he went to the pig. He said, "Pig, the farmer has bought a mouse trap." He said, "Oh, that's a sad day for mice everywhere. I'm not a mouse." He went to the cow. He said, "Brother Cow, there's a mouse trap." The cow said, "You let me know when they buy a cow trap." That night, the mouse trap caught a snake. The farmer's wife came to investigate and got bitten by the snake. She fell very sick, and the farmer killed the chicken to make some soup for her. Her sickness got worse. Many people came to visit her. The farmer killed the pig to feed them. Eventually, she died.
Right.
There had to be a big funeral, and the farmer killed the cow, while the mouse watched quietly from his hole. The moral of the story is that when you hear things happening to journalists, don't think it has nothing to do with you. If journalists are being attacked, it is your eyes and ears that are being blinded and sealed. Don't take it lying down. Press freedom is not just for journalists, it's your freedom. How else will you know what is going on in this world? How else will you know that somebody has had $1 million stolen from her house before she even noticed it? How will you know these things if journalists don't do a good job? So don't take it lying down. Don't allow anybody to intimidate journalists, not on your watch.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Evans. Evans, 30 seconds. What do you want us to take away from this conversation? Can we sound Evans up? Evans, you're muted, though. You're muted.
Said when journalists are beating and assaulted, etc., and you join the bandwagon to go onto the media terrain and join a certain army of social media clickers to attack them, well, you're destroying your own democracy and your own freedoms in the long run. And for me, that's the most important. Remember, you get the media you deserve.
Thank you so much, Evans. Mensah, do we have Mr. Latte on the line for his takeaway? Mr. Jolate, what do you want us to take away from this conversation on journalism and the whole story in Ghana? Mr. Jolate, are you there? What do you want us to take away from this story in Ghana?
Democracy thrives on a well topic.
Sorry, in Ghana.
Democracy thrives on a well-informed public.
So democracy thrives when you have a well-informed public. That's just the summary of what Mr. Latte was saying. And I'll leave the last word with you, Mr. Azure.
Well,
Awuni.
My last word will be directed at people who want to do journalism. We have spoken about how dangerous it is, how difficult it is, how it doesn't pay well. But there is another part of the story. That is, if you do the work and you excel, there are a lot of opportunities that will come your way beyond the newsroom. Journalism has taken me to places, and it's taken me to places that I don't think any other profession would have taken me there. It gives you some social capital. And there are people who appreciate what you do. Those who attack you are less than those who support you. So it is still a profession that if you do it well, you benefit.
Thank you so much, all of you, for watching this show. We stream live on GBC Ghana Online. We're on Facebook on Ghana Broadcasting Corporation and on radio on Unique 95.7. This special roundtable, GBC at 88, was brought to you tonight in partnership with ATL. You can buy your beautiful, resplendent ATL fabric from their shop at number 40 Kwame Nkrumah Avenue, opposite the Swansea Shopping Arcade in Accra. Or online, just go to atlfabrics.com. ATL bringing fabric to life. Our panel on Zoom was Evans Mensah. On phone was Mr. Joe Latte. In studio with the brilliant white shoes, Kojo Yankson, our latest payer of his TV license. Manasseh Azure Awuni. He took the money and paid it, and I saw the evidence. Thank you so much, Manasseh. So Teye Kitcher, continue to inspire the next generation of journalists. And Tina Aforo-Yeboah, also happy to have you here. My name is Kafui Dey. This conversation, you can watch it again, you can listen to it again right there on Facebook. This is Ghana Broadcasting Corporation celebrating 88 years. And we hope you've learned something from our conversation about journalism, the whole story. Continue watching and have a good night till you go to sleep. Sweet dreams. Good night.
GBC at 80. GBC at 88, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana.